Good morning, everybody. It is for me anyway. Didn't get much sleep last night, but eating carnivore makes it so much easier to wake up. Crazy. But I'll make a video about that one day. The roosters are going crazy, but that's life on the farm. In this video, I wanted to talk briefly about kale and this craze. People acting like it's some kind of superfood or so good for us or whatever the hell. Look, I don't know if you guys remember, but kale, the whole kale craze started maybe 2010, 2012. Right around there is when I started noticing it. Whole Foods started carrying it, and it was just like this awesome and amazing green, and not cheap either. You do know what it is, right? You do know what kale is, don't you? Kale is a brassica, or in the cabbage family, that was designed to be food for sheep. Okay? That's what it is. Granted, buffets would use it as this kind of, leaf dressing for under their meat trays because it looked pretty, because of how crinkly all the leaves are, right? And some enterprising entrepreneur got the bright idea to market it to, well, sheep. Oh, put a few lies on the label, make the price just high enough to make it seem exotic, but not too high so as people wouldn't buy it. And the kale craze started. I wanted to make this video because, or the reason I started looking into kale is because whenever I eat it, it comes out the same way it entered. And when I told a vegan that, he tried to diagnose me over over the internet and say that I had some kind of medical condition. Nah, brother. I'm not a sheep. I'm a carnivore. So I started looking into it, and this is what I found out. Now, this phenomenon of kale kind of reminds me of what a lot of vegans talk about these days. And it's this idea that all this grain that we grow for animals, even though most of it is not grown for animals, it's already grown for you, actually. Man, vegans know nothing, man. They know nothing. Anyway, this whole idea that we could just stop feeding animals grain and instead eat the grain ourselves. I'm sorry, but vegans know nothing. Go ahead. Eat a pound of feed corn. Go ahead, eat it. I mean, sprout it, cook it, do what you gotta do, man. Eat it. Matter of fact, eat 2 pounds of it. And then make a video about how you feel. I guarantee you, you're gonna be feeling on the toilet. Anyway, what the fuck, man? What is the matter with some of you people? Do you honestly want to eat like sheep? You know what sheep do? When you let them out to pasture, they chew and shit and fart all day. That's what they do. And a little bit about kale. Forage kale provides a balanced source of carbohydrate, protein, fiber, and minerals, and are valuable green winter feeds for sheep. Balanced source of carbohydrate, protein, fiber, and minerals for sheep. If you think all that is bioavailable to a carnivore, you're out of your mind. You don't know anything. Continuing. However, when fed exclusively for a prolonged period, lambs seldom achieve growth rates which would be predicted on the basis of the feed analysis. So even though looking at kale under the microscope, it has all these ingredients in it, if that is all that you feed your sheep, or primarily if that's their primary source of food, even though it's such a wonderful superfood for human beings, supposedly, if you feed it to sheep, which it was designed for in the first place, and you don't give them a whole bunch of other stuff with it, you know what's going to happen? Their growth will be stunted. And this is because, continuing from the article, brassica crops contain varying amounts of several important toxic substances which cause depressed appetite. The list of toxic substances includes depressed appetite in sheep. Now, I don't know what it does, what these toxins do to human sheep, but you could look that up on your own. Nitrates, right? The stuff that's in processed meat and not good for us. Kale has it too. Photosensitive substances, hemolytic anemia factors. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but it has something to do with, I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the absorption of iron, or how it prevents. It has something in it that prevents sheep, right? The animals that it was designed for. One little thing about sheep, those are herbivores in a broad sense. They're herbivores, right? They're also ruminant herbivores, which means they have a rumen. Well, it's a stomach specially designed to deal with this type of forage. They have 4 stomachs designed to digest herbivorous fare, if you will, right? You don't, vegan. Sheep do. Moreover, they spit that food up and they chew it over and over and over all day. Produce immense amounts of gas and feces. They spit their food up and chew it over and over and over and over again. And they have 4 stomachs and all kinds of gut bacteria that you don't have to be able to process it. Because it's inedible otherwise. You can't extract enough nutrition or calories or anything from it unless you have specially designed stomachs with specially designed bacteria. And you spit it up over and over again. And on top of that, you also ingest some dirt to get more and more of that bacteria in your system. Because guess what? Every time you poop, some of it comes out. Do you do any of that, vegans? Jesus. And even though this fodder was designed for sheep, right? And sheep are designed to eat this sort of thing. If they eat too much of it, they die. Continuing, kale also contains oxalates, which are really bad for us. Look it up. Glucosinolates, which can induce iodine deficiency, which will make sheep infertile, and their babies will be born weak and will die. Okay? This is why you need multi-generational studies on vegan populations of different heritages, races, DNAs. This is why veganism is easy to debunk. You've succumbed to the propaganda. It's real easy to debunk veganism. Anyway, also contains sulfur and molybdenum, which can induce copper deficiency. Similar problems with that deficiency. And it makes their hair frizzy. Anyway, you could go check out this article if you feel like it. And you could see what happens to sheep when they eat too much of kale, skin necrosis. This is what happens to their babies if they eat too much of it. They get goiters also because it prevents iodine absorption. And then they just die suddenly, sometimes, if they eat too much of it. Sudden deaths are often seen in lambs within about 2 to 3 weeks of a move onto brassica crops, associated with changes in feed rather than specific toxicities. Right? So prior to 2012, none of us ate kale, right? Because it was, well, used as decoration. Which reminds me, some dude on one of my videos is telling us we need to start eating pine trees. Jesus Christ. Merry Christmas, everybody. So we hadn't been eating kale prior to 2010, let's say. And even though nobody's likely to eat enough of it to die, I mean, if sheep do that, it will kill them. You change their feed too rapidly, too drastically, it will kill them. Okay? You change, and this is evidenced in our evolution. You change our diet drastically, and it will have profound changes on us, like what has happened with the agrarian revolution, right? Or the Neolithic revolution, period. And it's what's happening with a lot of vegans. They're getting very, very sick because they change their feed rapidly. All kinds of problems. Giving kale to sheep, too much of it, right? Even though it was designed for them and they were designed to eat it. If you overdo it, it's toxic, causes all kinds of problems, stops them from reproducing, right? But this is some kind of great human food, even though we're not adapted to eat this sort of thing. It's supposed to be so amazing for us, huh? You really think so? Bon appetit, vegans. I'm not touching that shit because it exits exactly the same way it entered. Probably because my body is smart enough to know not to touch that nonsense. Anyway, good morning once again, and thank you for listening.